2019 Los Angeles City Health Commission meeting. Happy New Year. Please, may I have the roll call?
Avila. Estradas. Grimmick.
Present.
Hisarich.
Here.
Mandel.
Present.
Ozzie.
Present.
Vic.
Here.
7 members present and a quorum.
Fabulous. Approval of the minutes from November 19th, 2018. Would anyone like to,
So moved.
any second? Second. All righty. All in favor? Any opposition or abstentions? Minutes are approved. Anyone here to make neighborhood council comments? No? Anyone here to make public comment? I see no comment card for public comment. Okay, let's move on. Item number 1. Update on plan for a healthy Los Angeles. Claire Bowen, Los Angeles City Planning. Any comments for item number 1? I don't see any. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Claire Bowen, Senior City Planner, Los Angeles Department of City Planning. Thank you so much for inviting me to your first meeting of 2019. This is a great way to kickstart off the year. So I am really excited to share with you some of the things that have happened since we adopted the plan. It was adopted back in 2015, and as you know, the plan was really an opportunity to really highlight a number of topics the city felt were really important to kind of bring to the forefront because they really play a large role in affecting people's quality of life. So the plan really focuses around goals around the idea of equity, lifelong learning, safety, parks, and food, with different chapters oriented around each of those different topics. There's a total of about 88 programs in this plan, so it's pretty far-reaching. Because it is so kind of broad and health is such a big topic, it's not a plan that is under the domain or the implementation role of any one department. It's really health is going to be implemented by a number of departments and certainly a number of organizations that work, in the city. Everything from LA Unified to after-school programs to our libraries to our parks departments to our nonprofit park programs, things like community gardens. So again, in some ways, it takes a village, right, to grow a city to be super healthy. But what I wanted to do tonight is just kind of emphasize a number of the programs that kind of have been worked on since we adopted the plan. But because it is kind of so far-reaching and again, it is implemented by so many different departments, I'm not necessarily particularly familiar with all the different ways this plan is being implemented. So if I miss something that a department is working on, it's just because there's no one person kind of managing and kind of overseeing this plan in terms of its implementation. It's really kind of relying on, we elevated it, and then it's really up to a lot of the different departments and agencies to kind of take it and run with it. But there have been, again, a number of things that have happened that I wanted to just highlight. I mean, the first and foremost to me is just the great work the LA Food Policy Council is doing. Again, this plan really elevates the role of healthy food, and they certainly, as a nonprofit in the city, have been doing a lot of great work in that area. One of the other kind of key programs was identified in the plan, again with the idea of food, was around street vending. And obviously you all know the street vending ordinance was recently passed. So that was kind of exciting to see that in the plan, and and there it is. The plan also called out for the need for the city to actually inventory all of its own kind of public assets, all of our vacant lands, and look to where there might be opportunities to use those lands for park spaces or housing. And that again is happening and is ongoing, but that inventory has been done. The plan also spoke to the role and the importance of our urban forest and the need for an urban forest strategy plan. And recently, actually just by the end of 2018, City Plants, which is a nonprofit started by the city, actually launched what they're calling the first step, and it was an outline that described what would be the steps that need to be taken for the city actually to develop an urban forest management plan. So that is underway. The plan certainly speaks to the importance of implementing the vision of the Los Angeles River Revitalization Master Plan, and certainly over the last several years since the plan was adopted, continues to be a lot of momentum around the LA River, and certainly making it into a 32 and 51 mile corridor that everybody could enjoy and provide ecological benefits as well as health and recreational benefits. I'm going to turn my focus now to a couple of ones that the planning department in particular has been involved with. There's several programs in the plan that really are kind of under the domain of zoning. And one, it talks about the importance of updating the landscape guidelines, about continuing kind of clean up, green up, and the river improvement overlay zone. And all three of those kind of initiatives are certainly being folded into the update of our zoning code. We are in the process right now of updating a zoning code that hasn't been really holistically updated since the 1940s. So I'm pleased to say that some of the ideas around, again, landscaping and clean up, green up, and things from the river improvement overlay are going to be embedded in that zoning code, so instead of being kind of separate elements of it. And lastly, I'm going to turn to what I think are the two kind of most important programs, at least that, again, that the planning's had a role in with the implementation of this plan. And the first one is around healthy kid zones. And that was actually, when we pulled the stakeholders together after the plan was adopted, we said, all right, there's 88 programs, and what do we want to focus on? And the stakeholders unanimously said, we want to dig into what this healthy kid zone idea is that it was a program that was identified in the plan, and it talked about maybe improving 5 elements of a school surrounding neighborhood in terms of improving it for physical activity, nutrition, environment, public and perceived safety, and health and social services. So the plan kind of lays out this kind of very broad idea. We were like, well, we need to kind of really think about what would it take to implement that. So we pulled together folks from the LA County Department of Public Health, from First 5 LA, LAUSD from their wellness program, LA Trust for Children's Health, and the Community Health Councils, who had really been kind of a leader in both initiating the plan for Healthy Los Angeles as well as making sure that we had this program in there. So we really came together over about a year and kind of tried to really think about what would a healthy kid zone be. And when I say zone, it's not about zoning zone. It's really about maybe looking at an area like a half mile around a school and trying to think, if we put a lot of resources, on this area, and we first evaluated what was kind of the basic data sets in this area, what were the problems, and then tried to work together, kind of like in the way promise zones are, where multiple organizations and agencies are all kind of, rowing in the same direction to try to improve certain factors around an area. And after, kind of meeting for about a year and a half, we went and actually visited a number of the wellness centers that LAUSD has. Community Health Council decided they really were going to take kind of the leadership with this. We recognized that while it was great to have the county and the city involved, it really required kind of a local organization to kind of take the leadership with this. And they decided they were going to go off and find some grant funding to focus around a specific high school that we all thought was kind of a perfect kind of test case or pilot state. So they have been out for the last year and a half doing assessments around that area and doing community engagement, doing opinion surveys to really drill down into what were the health, but again, health with that big H in terms of, covers a lot of different things, from everything from safety to food to the environment, to really drill down in that community and understand really what were the problems, and doing a lot of data collection to, again, understand that baseline so they could then come forward and start to really put together a proposed strategy. So that's really kind of their baby, and I don't want to kind of speak for them, but I would encourage you to have the community health councils come and speak. We were very pleased as a city to be able to launch this program, and I'm really excited to see where community health council has taken it this far, and I'm excited about hopefully the city continuing to work with them to identify how we maybe can collaborate with them and helping them solve some of the problems they've identified through their current effort. And then lastly, I wanted to focus on the program called Healthy Building Design Guidelines, which is actually the first program in the plan, and it identified the really important role that buildings and their sites play in affecting somebody's health. And so the idea there was that maybe we created some new guidelines that really talked about, encouraging everything from edible landscaping to making staircases really prominent in a building, so that people choose stairs as opposed to the elevator when they're moving, moving vertically in a building, or making sure there's a lot of light and air coming to the building, so that somebody feels more positive during the workday. They're getting natural air coming through, or even in their apartments, designing the building so you have kind of the classic eyes on the street, so the street itself has a safer feeling. Doing things that improve improve the pedestrian environment, whether it's street trees or awnings to just make it, again, a comfortable and safe environment. Designing how the building lays out from the very beginning so that it has shade on it, so that it's reducing its own environmental impacts in terms of its needs for power, or designing the building so it has it uses less water. So again, healthy being thought of here, not only for how it impacts personal health, but also how it affects kind of environmental health. And let's see what else. And also then focusing on, encouraging kind of public space and open spaces within those in those sites. So the exciting thing is it was there listed as a program, and our department last summer launched an update to our citywide design guidelines that we've had out for a number of years. Those tended to focus again a lot on the facade of the building and other things, and we thought that with the update to those guidelines, let's go back to these healthy building design guidelines, and let's just make sure that our approach to citywide design guidelines really puts health kind of front and center, health in the environment. So it's really helping clarify that we're doing design guidelines not just because it makes maybe for a prettier building, but it really makes for a more effective building. It makes it a building that, again, is really improving people's health and, again, improving the overall quality environment of the city and reducing the energy that our buildings that are being built play. So we're just going to make health a kind of a front and center focus of the citywide design guidelines when we update them. So they're not just kind of a separate thing over here, they're front and center too, and just kind of embedded in the citywide design guidelines. So when we ask developers and tell them, here are the things we'd like to see you do, and this is again typically just for your large development projects where we actually have design guideline authority, but let's make sure those buildings, as your bigger projects, which really can be the leaders, that they start to look at these things when they're designing a building. So that, and we are hoping to take those healthy building design, or the citywide design guidelines update, which will include many of these topics, to our planning commission later this spring. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Or
Thank you so much. Any questions from the commissioners? I have a couple, but anyone has any questions?
I may have missed it, but is there anything in the department's jurisdiction about the placement of drilling sites, petroleum drilling sites vis-a-vis residential or other structures?
there actually is a program in the plan that talks about needing to look at those. I have to admit that I'm not an expert on that topic. I know that the city has an oil or petroleum administrator for the first time up in the mayor's office, and I know there are folks in our department who work in the communities, especially around South LA, who have been looking more into that. I know it's obviously a challenging topic, but I'd have to get back to you with what the latest is.
We've had the petroleum administrator here.
Okay.
I think there has been some movement on the council and discussions of it about siting and proximity and so on. At the moment, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know that, but I can get more details and come back to you, or have someone come back from our department who's maybe more of an authority on that.
And similarly, next to freeway,
Mm-hmm.
do you have rules or plans on limiting residential housing, especially for kids near fields?
Great. No, thank you. I forgot to mention that, 'cause that's actually a component of the Healthy Building Design Guidelines. So we actually took to commission, I guess it was last summer, an update to a zoning information document that we have out that basically gives guidance to the Planning Commission and to developers as to what things you can do when you have a building or a site that's right near a freeway. So we recommended in that zoning information document, and we will then again carry those forth into the update of the citywide design guidelines, that if you have a site right near the freeway, that you put your non-habitable uses there. So if you're doing a parking structure, for example, use that as your buffer, or do heavy landscaping in that area. Landscaping that's not necessarily going to be used as parks and open space, but again, just kind of a natural landscape buffer. So those are kind of the two kind of biggest things. One is try to get the habitable spaces as far away from the freeway as you can. That zoning information document, as well as kind of the report that accompanied it, really kind of dive into some of the challenges we face with freeways. Obviously, freeways are heavy polluters, but we also have a lot of uses that are already in proximity. So it's always been a challenge for the city because people are already living there. One of the things that the city did a number of years ago to address this issue was to require that all new projects put in, I think it's a MERV 13 filter for projects that are being built along the freeway. And we also then worked, as a part of that update on that report, we worked with the housing department because they actually, through their they call it a SCEP program. I can't remember what the acronym stands for right now. They actually go out, I think, on a rotating 4-year basis and go and inspect all the apartments in the city that are now, they inspect all the apartments, but they then specifically would make sure that their inspectors, when they're inspecting buildings that are subject to that new MERV 13 filter requirement, would make sure that those the project manager or the property managers are aware of the importance of changing out that filter and even check that, because of obviously though that higher filter requirement is not effective if it's not actually being cleaned. So it's very challenging with this topic.
Follow to that, is there an advantage of having more filters, or are there more modern filters than originally were placed? And if so, is there a way that planning can theoretically give a benefit to a developer or a landlord for putting in better filters, more filters, and give them some other kind of leeway on some other aspect of construction?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think MERV 13 is considered kind of the highest performing right now. And obviously there's trade-offs, right? So the higher filter you go to, then the more energy that filter is going to require to push the air through. I think one of the other things that's kind of just important to bring to the conversation, I mean, again, this was highlighted in our report, and again, it just kind of speaks to the challenges when you're talking about development near freeways, is that the Center for Disease Control even recognized a number of years ago that there's kind of two approaches or two prongs when you're trying to deal with freeways. One is to reduce the actual emission levels in the first place, and then the second is to reduce somebody's exposure to it. And the reducing to the exposure in some ways kind of gets the most attention because it's kind of a building right there and people want to like solve a lot of problems around it. Really, the biggest kind of the most effective strategy is to reduce the emissions in the first place, and that's really where the Center for Disease Control is really recommending that the cities continue to focus most of their effort, which is why the state, as well as the city and especially DWP, are really focused on trying to help support the build out of our electrical vehicle system, because the faster you can get people to electric vehicles and reduce the amount of gas vehicles are on the street, that is going to be more effective, because you're going to help reduce the number of pollutants in the first place. Because I think it's also important to point out that while freeways obviously deserve a lot of the attention, because that's really, especially when you have a lot of your high diesel particulates, but you also have a lot, in general, the air quality in Southern California is bad. And that even includes along your major arterial. So really focusing on reducing emissions in the first place is really kind of for us the highest priority. And so obviously building that electrical system, but also continuing to build out the transit system, putting housing and other uses where people can use their car less, where people can walk more. Those are longer term goals, and sometimes they're a little bit harder to achieve, but that is really where kind of our first focus is. Not to mean that we don't want to pay attention to how we can reduce exposure, which is why the filters is again kind of highlighted by the Center for Disease Control as a key component, as well as trying to do some buffering. But it's going to have a limited effect because again, these particles move around and behave differently on different days based on temperature and based on airflow. So it's kind of like using a Band-Aid to stem a hemorrhage. So,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? So one of my questions was, how often is this plan updated, and then where are the opportunities for like the commission or other residents to provide input on this plan?
So that's a really great question. So the city has a general plan and incorporates a number of different elements. The health topic is not a required element by the state, but the city did do that back in 2015. So there's no current plan right now to update it, although I think there has been some interest in updating the data that went along with it. We put a data book together just before the plan was done, and it really was meant to be kind of a baseline. So there's kind of a whole map book that looked at a lot of different factors across the city, from, you know, understand mapping, you know, where were the highest incidences of asthma and diabetes, or gunshot wounds, or of poverty, where were issues of, again, air quality. So I think that there's been some interest of maybe after the next census, when we have more data come out again after 2020, but maybe to be updated again to help see, did we move the needle at all? Like if we have the baseline data, which a lot of it relied on 2010 work, where are we, you know, 10 years later? So I think that would be an important initiative right now. That's not funded and not on the books, but I think it's something that would be great for the, you know, the Health Commission to raise and encourage the city to, you know, update that data. I think that the plan itself, I think, is can live on for a number of years. I think it sets up for some really, really strong goals and policies that I'm not sure we necessarily need to change. There could be an opportunity to look at the programs that were put in there and see how many were actually completed, and again, how effective were they. But that's where that data becomes really important, that map book, because it really is a nice kind of really independent way of understanding, you know, how effective were the different things. Or maybe there's new programs we need to do to be more robust if those programs weren't strong enough in terms of helping really move the needle.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for that. Other questions? Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So as she leaves, I do think that there is an opportunity to put some pressure on getting the health plan updated. We might want to think about doing that. So is there any thoughts on that? Because when she said they're not going to update, I was like, Commissioner Ossie?
Yes, so quite a few years ago, I assisted the City of Compton in their health element, which she did state the health element, excuse me, is an optional chapter to a general plan update. And so with working with the City of Compton, they were really open to recommendations. And so maybe that's an opportunity for the commission to have some inclusion on the health element if the city decides to continue with that and update it.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Other thoughts? Okay, moving on to item number 2. Discussion and or action on Los Angeles City Health Commission Annual Report. I do have a comment card here from Adam Cohen.
Good evening. My name is Adam Cohen. I work for AIDS Healthcare Foundation as the Director of Advocacy and Policy Research. I look forward to reading this year's report. I hope the report also gets to be shared with the LA City Council and the mayor and literally anybody who has any interest in the health and safety of our great city. I think that there is a topic in the report about HIV and other sexually transmitted diseases, which are still a serious issue in LA City as well as the County of Los Angeles. I wanted to share shameless self-promotion, I'm sorry. I wanted to share an editorial that was just published in the Journal of Sexually Transmitted Diseases about the resurgence of STDs. And so I brought copies that I'll give to Candy, and you can go ahead and read. It's a very short 3-page editorial, co-authored by me, my supervisor at AIDS Healthcare Foundation, as well as 2 members of the Los Angeles LGBT Center. So it's an interesting summary about how funding has decreased for STD prevention, and of course, subsequently, STDs have risen. LA County, again, is perpetually bombarded with high rates of chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, HIV, and the city, as 41% of LA County, bears a very strong burden of that epidemic. And that's all. Thank you so much. I look forward to that report, and it better get shared with the LA City Council.
Thank you. So you have in front of you a copy of the LA City Health Commission report. Would like to acknowledge, first of all, Matt Crane, our administrative intern, that has spent many, many hours on this report and has worked with all of you to get your input and recommendations. I actually, hopefully you have had a chance to look at it. If there are any questions or concerns, but I actually would like to move to approve this report so that we can get it in front of the council.
So moved.
Oh, well, all right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes, aye.
Oh, any opposition or abstentions? Oh, I'm sorry, comments, I'm sorry. Any comments about the report? Okay, well, we're good. Any abstentions or opposition? All righty, the report is approved.
Just a quick question. So who moved and who seconded?
No, it was like
Moved.
simultaneous.
Second. Okay.
It was like a multiple.
Double,
Awesome.
I'd also like to say that our intern, Matthew Crane, does a stellar job.
Yes.
Not only working with us, but in articulating the vision of the Health Commission, and you should be proud of the positive impact you will have on the city of Los Angeles and the approximately 4 million people that live here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Commissioner Ossie has a question.
Yes, I do have a clarifying question. On page 11 of the report, under the action plan, I just wanted to clarify the intent of that statement where it says decrease access
Wait a minute,
to
hold on.
naloxone. I just wanted to ensure that we indeed wanted to do that, or we wanted to increase the access for emergency service personnel and those that would need
11.
access for that. Under action plan,
Oh, okay. Oh,
should we be increasing the access?
Comma in there.
but are we? We might need Matt to come up to clarify page, page
That one
11.
word.
Do you see it at the bottom, action?
It should be decreased access, not decrease.
To address the abuse of heroin and other opioids and decrease access, yeah.
Is it
So I
missing?
think that was left over from the previous report because Dr. Eckstein left the same action plans.
Okay,
So we can make that edit if you'd like.
So it's increased.
I think it'd be, yeah, and increase access.
we want people to have more access to naloxone.
Uh-huh.
What is naloxone?
The opioid
The
opioid reversal.
Narcan.
Yeah,
Oh,
It's
Uh-huh.
like a first cousin to opioids, so that it hits the same receptor,
Right.
but it actually reverses the impact of opioids, and it hangs on to the receptor longer, so it acts like a blocker. So if somebody has a respiratory depression or arrest because of opioid overdose, it rapidly reverses it.
so we want more people to have access to Narcan. So it should say
Yes.
increased access.
Yes.
Instead of decreased.
Yes.
So we just need to fix that.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Ossie. Okay, so is approved. We'll make that correction.
I just realized something when I was reading this on page 17. It's the one that was faxed to us. I don't know if it's on the same page that we have in our desk.
Can you speak into the, I can't hear you.
Page 17 of the document
Okay.
that was faxed to us. I don't know if it's the same as on here, the page. Just a term that I wonder if we could use a different term. It's on the last sentence. It's hard to see it here. More concretely, less affluent queer, comma, minority. What do we mean by queer?
Queer is a term that has been adopted by the LGBTQ community.
Oh.
So it is I mean,
Okay, because I thought maybe that's what it meant, but I wondered why that term, I didn't realize it was adopted by the community. Okay.
we can double check. You want to use that instead?
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. Make that change.
Okay, and that's fine, these are just minor. Okay, thank you. That's it. Yay. So our next steps would be trying to getting this, well, I keep saying trying. No, we're not going to try, we will do. Getting this to the city council and getting on the council agenda. So I'll probably will need some assistance. I don't know that process, Candy, so you can let me know how we can do that. Perfect. Yay.
Could we also send a copy to the editors of the LA Times and to the local TV stations, whoever their health editor is or their health reporters are? Is that possible? Are we allowed to do that
Is there something
directly, or
against
do we have
that?
to go through the council for that?
I'd have to look at the rules on that. I'll get back to you on that. I don't know if you can disseminate, if you present it to council and then council,
They don't have to approve it according to the law, we just
No,
have to
no, no.
submit it to them.
Correct. I just have to make sure that
Yeah,
it's
so if-
within
Okay.
the purview of this body to do that.
Okay.
If it's allowed by city law, Counselor, then we would love to have it sent to the LA Times as well as any other newspapers that exist in the city that I'm not aware of, as well as to the local news stations.
I'll find out for you.
Okay,
You're welcome.
thank you. Okay, awesome. Okay, moving on to item number 3. Update on Los Angeles City Health Commission vacancies. We do have a comment here, Adam Cohen.
There we go. Hello again, Adam Cohen from AIDS Healthcare Foundation. I see that there are still 10 members out of the 15 allowed for this commission. I think it is a worthwhile endeavor to continue to very nicely urge the remaining LA City Council members, and I believe the mayor gets a choice in one of the appointees to, no, I was wrong about that. Urge the council members to appoint members to this commission. Public health is a serious, serious issue. I think it's, the reason I chose the field of health ultimately is because, you really can't outsource this. People will always need healthcare. People will always need healthcare services. And so ultimately, this is the kind of work that's absolutely necessary in such a large city. So I just urge you to continue to push and push and push and nag for more members on this committee. It has a lot of potential. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have been working, and I say we, myself and also the intern Matt, have been working on trying to get the commission seats filled. As you know, some time ago, Commissioner Cato and I had come up with a nice little group of folks that were very interested and engaged and wanted to serve on the commission. That email was sent out. I have done some follow-up emails. There's some council offices I still have not heard any response from. I did hear, though, from Council Member Englander's office that since he has resigned, that he will not be appointing. So we have to wait until that spot gets filled. So I will just continue to send emails and say, hello, what are we doing here? So I'll just continue to do that, and maybe if you all can do that with me, maybe more emails will get some sort of result. But we did get one new commissioner, so.
Has anybody been able to contact Commissioner Griffith and find out his status, because he's missed a few meetings?
Yeah, no, I did send an email a while back and didn't hear anything. I'm going to assume that he is not interested, or he's stepped down at this point. It's been
I forget.
quite a few months.
Who appointed him? I don't remember.
I don't have that list in front of me.
Maybe Candy did.
CD10,
Okay.
CD10.
Okay.
Councilmember Wesson.
Okay.
Councilmember Wesson's office.
Oh, Wesson.
Wesson. So, yeah. So I'll just keep working. And again, there may be opportunity. Hopefully you all can assist. Maybe, like I said, more than one email will make a difference. I really don't know what else to do. I gave them a list of folks that were qualified.
I've personally spoken to council members Koretz and Ryu about this problem.
Okay.
They're both supportive, and I forwarded your list as well as the analysis to their offices, but they're limited because it has to come out of individual offices, but they said they would try to bring it up to the other council.
Okay. Any other questions, suggestions, thoughts? What can we do? Anybody? I can only send so many emails. You spoke, I don't know what else to do.
Goodyear blimp over the city.
Yeah, like, hello. Right, so when I email them, I either get, oh, thank you for the list of folks. Do any of them live in our council district? And I'm like, I mean, no, but they live or work in the city. Or I don't get a response at all. So, and then that one response, well, he resigned, so he's not going to appoint. Okay.
We could there probably are federally qualified health centers that are in each of the districts
Yeah.
that don't have representative, and that perhaps we could reach out to them, and whether there is an executive director or a public affairs officer or chief medical officer from those federally qualified health centers, potentially them or a board member of those institutions potentially would be acceptable to the city council members of those districts.
Right. Okay, we can work on that. I'll work with him on that. Yes.
As a federally qualified health center, I will also contact our CEO of our Federally Qualified Health Center Association
Okay.
and share this information, and perhaps we could get somebody that would be
Okay.
interested. We could go from that perspective also.
Perfect. And what I'll do is I'll make sure the list of the vacant seats, the council districts they're affiliated with, that you have access to that so you can direct folks. Okay. Other thoughts? Thank you. These are great suggestions. Okay. Yeah. So I have a public comment from Lisa Douglas.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my comment. My name is Lisa Douglas, sorry, I'll back up. I have an issue right now with what's going on at the county level, and I'm sure that the city probably knows about it, where students, unlicensed, untrained students, are sneaking into Beverly Hills clinics in the back door and getting themselves accredited on females' and males' faces. So this happened to me, and I kept looking around, and I had to sue the doctor, and then I was over at the Hall of Administration the other day, ran into Brad Spellberg, who is he is the medical director of the county, and he said, he was on a phone call, he said on the phone call that he indemnifies these students and the medical directors who send them out into unconsented area. Like, we consented for a nose surgery. I was an actress, and they cut off my upper jaw. So my mouth has been disabled, and then they put us into a study where we can't get health care in the United States. Whether it's to protect the students, whether it's to make money for the state, I don't know why, but we were placed in a clinical study so that nobody would help us. So I had to go out of the country. 5 of my friends that found me online, because I have a YouTube channel, also had to go out of the country to have anybody help them. This is a great oppression for people going for plastic surgery. So I have a document here from Children's Hospital that says California medical license unlicensed rotating trainees. These people go into outside clinics. So if you have an unscrupulous doctor, they can send you for one procedure, and these guys come in the door and they sawed off our jaws. And I don't think that's right. We also have a law here in the state. This is against the law in our state. Yet Children's Hospital, who is owned by Keck, USC, and the county medical director, Brad Spellberg, is the head of Keck and the head of the county.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you're saying these are medical students, or are they other individuals?
License is against state law, and a lot of these women said that they also went into their you-know-wheres during the surgery, which is against state law.
But are they medical students in a medical school within the county or city of Los Angeles?
It says, yes, untrained, unlicensed, against state law.
Well, there's 2 points you should be aware of. One is, if they're under the guides of teaching, then the individual surgeon has a moral and ethical responsibility to supervise the individuals. 2, if you're having plastic surgery or any kind of surgery in an institution where there are students, you have to be made aware of that. If not, you have a tort claim capability. You could find an attorney and file suit for violation of both city and county and state law.
Right.
The other thing you could do is, if there are physicians' offices that they're working in, you can make a report to the California Medical Board.
Right, Right, but the
We'll investigate.
California Medical Board knows, and the county is the one that's allowing it. I mean, they put these students that are unlicensed in a county, like they have a county employment agreement that's temporary. So it's very hard to go against the county, and we were not at a county facility. We were in a Beverly Hills clinic, and acting was our profession, so it seems that they
Right.
should be ethically.
The Medical Board of California has its own fiduciary responsibility for the health and welfare and safety of patients in the state of California. So you can make a formal complaint, and the investigators for the county, for the Medical Board of California they'll take every single complaint serious. And if you have several individuals that you know of the same physician, I can guarantee you that the Medical Board of California, which answers directly to the Attorney General's Office of the State of California, take these complaints very seriously, and they'll investigate it both personally to you and also the other individuals, and they'll do a formal investigation with physicians and attorneys that are working for the State of California.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we are at item number 4, items for future discussion. And we, at our last commission meeting, we came up, or I shared the list that we had all come together and talked about, and our topic areas. So actually, our first speaker today is based on the list. We had a plan for a Healthy LA follow-up, so she came and did that just now. We also have healthcare topic, housing homelessness, and health status to address the STD HIV rates in LA. So I thought I emailed this out, but I'm not sure, so I'll resend it to Candy. But we have already, I have some potential guest speakers, as well as the potential topics. And I know Commissioner Grimmick and I were just talking about the importance of maybe having someone come and talk about the homeless issue, but in regards to housing and the ability, or there was someone at USC that had figured out how to build very inexpensive housing in areas of the city. So really wanted to focus on that as well. So I'll resend this, but are there any other topics that we need to address? Yes.
So I'd like to recommend we look at trauma and how that intersects with the health and well-being of communities. Andrea Welsing with LA County Department of Public Health, she just recently did a presentation to the county's Public Health Commission, and I think it would be beneficial to hear some of the work that's being done to look at trauma and the exposures, and then also out of the I'm not sure which department that is with the city, but they have a new program that they've implemented with a team called REACH that offers resources to children that have been exposed to trauma. And so I think they would be a great presenter to share what they're doing in the city as it relates to children being exposed to trauma.
Okay. Any others? So I'll add the trauma topic in here and have this sent back out so you all can see, and I'll just start to move down because it seemed like we all had an agreement at that time, but I'll send it back out, and then we can start to have people come in and have these conversations. Any other thoughts? All righty, it's time to go. Any movement for adjournment? Oh, second? Yeah, comment?
Discussion?
Questions?
Seeing no discussion or comment,
All
all in
agree?
favor?
Any opposition? All right, meeting adjourned. See you next month. Thank you.